Suzanne.
Great, thanks, Anne. Yeah, so I've just got a couple of slides to give you an overview of the systemic practice and family therapy programs at Queen's, and then I'm going to pass you over to Stephen to say a little bit more about the different levels of training. Um, so yeah, I started with a little bit of a little excerpt there from the What is Family Therapy leaflet that the Association of Family Therapy and Systemic Practice in the UK put out. Um, and really, I suppose, just as Anne had said, it's probably good to note that these courses, all this series of courses, are accredited not just by Queen's in terms of academic credits or by NISC in terms of professional credits for social workers, but also by the Association of Family Therapy and Systemic Practice in UK. So these are clinical skills. So all the different levels have those credits attached to them. Um, and I thought it was probably worthwhile sort of mentioning, the relationship between systemic practice and family therapy. Because really these courses, I suppose as we know in our own lives, just how important supportive relationships are for us as we go through all our lives, really, across the life course. And, particularly important when we're having difficulties. So these courses, although they can lead you to become fully qualified as a family therapist, there are different levels of training, so you can exit at different points along the pathway. So you can do year one, you can become a systemic practitioner, or you can go on and become a family therapist. And I suppose it's also important to say that both systemic practitioners and family therapists also work with individuals. So if you only work with individuals, that is still perfectly applicable for certainly for years one and year two, because you can work in a relational way with individuals and in ways that strengthen their relationships, that consider and strengthen them. Yeah. Um, so all the courses, really across all the different levels of training, we really seek to create stimulating and engaging and different types of learning spaces and opportunities, where the students that come onto the courses get the opportunity to develop their skills, to maximize the therapeutic benefit in their everyday practice with individuals and families. And yet, just to say that again, like they're not focused, even though the courses are all accredited under this umbrella of family therapy, there's not an expectation that you become a therapist. So if you're a social worker, it's about increasing your skills, because when you're doing assessments, when you're talking to people about difficult things that happen in your life, in their lives, you're wanting to do that in a way that maximizes therapeutic benefit. So we want people to take the skills and the knowledge and use them in their current role and context, um, with individuals and families. So the skills are really wide ranging, and really applicable, given just how important relationships are. They're really applicable for practitioners in a really wide variety of sectors, so health, social care, education, criminal justice, voluntary sector. Uh, uh, yeah, great. Next slide, Barbara, please, if that's okay. Yeah, this sort of tries to give you a little bit of an overview of the different levels, and then we'll go into them in a little bit more detail. But just to say, there are my contact details and Stephen's contact details there. I did put my mobile number because I'm conscious at the moment that there's a difficulty still in emailing between the trusts and Queen's, although we're hopeful that that's going to be sorted really soon. So we're really happy for any queries at all that you have about the courses. And also to say, while Stephen and I work together across the programs and lead various different levels of them, we have a really very experienced range of clinically experienced tutors on all different levels of the program. So, when you come on the programs, you really get access to people that have been working in the field for years and to have a lot to teach. So we're really delighted by that. Um, Okay, so there's four different levels of training that sort of you can exit at different points and they link together as well. So if you want to keep going, you can. Yeah. So the first year is accredited through Queen's as a postgraduate certificate. And it's year one of the program, and it's the entrance program. So if you're interested in coming onto this program, even if you think, oh, I want to be a full family therapist, or I want to definitely do year two, It's the PG certificate that you need to apply to first because it's the entrance programme. If you successfully complete the PG cert and you're interested in staying on and doing year two, you don't have to reapply. We can just roll that application over. And if you complete those 2-year programs, you will exit with a postgraduate diploma and the title of systemic practitioner. Then, like the other programs, both Anne's and Gavin's, if you've got that year two and you want to think, oh, I've got a postgraduate diploma, I'd really like an academic master's, you can, like those other programs, go on to the specialist dissertation program that Amanda will speak of later, and you can then complete an academic master's. It's called Masters in Systemic Practice. But if you want to be a fully qualified family therapist, you basically complete the diploma and then you exit there with the diploma and then come back on and do a clinical master's qualifying level training, which is set up as years 3 and years 4 of the full clinical systemic psychotherapy training. And Stephen will tell you more about that later on. So that's how the courses sort of hang together as such and where the exit points are. They're all multidisciplinary programs, which we see as a really big plus. So although we're housed in social work, we have got practitioners coming on the program from a really wide range of disciplines and sectors and settings, really. So social work, clinical psychology, mental health nursing, psychiatry, counselling, education. So most people that come on already have a professional qualification, so this is an additional tool. Occasionally we get people that don't have, that have been working, say, in social care for years and have loads of experience and education background, but don't have one of these qualifications. And sometimes you still can APEL, if you like, onto the programs. And what I tend to do if you apply for the PG cert is to go back and ask you to give me a full CV and tell me more about your history and your experience and where you've worked and what training you've had, etc. Really trying to just make sure that you understand about mental health conditions, child development, safeguarding practices, because those are all things in an additional course that we can't cover in detail, but so we expect you to come with that knowledge already. And of course, that will be enhanced by being on the programs, we would hope. So not only are they multidisciplinary, but also people from a really wide range of contexts, both adult context and children and family services. Yeah. So I suppose when you start to think in relational terms, you think outside the sector, because although or outside your sort of own setting, if you like, because although sort of like we divide up our services into child welfare, physical health and disability, mental health. When you work with families or you work relationally with individuals, you might be working in a child welfare setting, but the parent that you're working with has mental health problems or has physical health and disabilities or is a carer for their own parents or the grandparents. So these things, while we divide up our services, those things are much less neat and tidy, I suppose, in people's lives. So I mean, again, what students tell us is having that range of disciplines and having that range of professional contexts represented in the learning group is really great as well, because of course people bring their particular expertise, their lens of looking at a scenario or what's happening or presenting issues or so that's a real big plus as well. The other thing about the course, these are clinical courses, so they're about applied learning, and they've all got the AFT accreditation as well as the NISC accreditation, and because of that, they're set up in such a way that they're really skills orientated as well as the theory and knowledge. We're really focusing on you leaving the program with additional skills that you can use in your work setting. And so everything is, all the assignments across all the programs, they ask you, of course, about theory, but they also ask, well, what does this mean for you in your role, in your practice context? What are you doing differently, courtesy of the training? And because all the assignments, there is an element of them that will be applying to your current practice and role. We do like your line manager to be one of your referees for the program. It's really important that they know that you're on the program, because we know that in your assignments, even though you'll be talking about individuals or families, and keeping confidentiality and anonymity, we're conscious when we're working those assignments, you're talking about real people. And so it's also really important, because I think for managers as well, if you bring back learning, you can share that with the team. So we really encourage you to have your line manager as one of your referees. And as I said before, all the courses are accredited, both with NISC and with the Association of Family Therapy and Systemic Practice. Yeah, great. And the next one. So this is my last slide before I pass you over to Stephen. So I take responsibility for year one, the postgraduate certificate program, and it's probably our biggest one, because it's one we have most, and then we hopefully have a smaller group that go on to do year two, and then a smaller group again that go on to do the full qualifying level training. So the aim of the postgraduate certificate is to help practitioners in different settings and roles to understand the core concepts of contemporary systemic practice and utilise basic systemic skills and techniques to maximise the therapeutic benefits for individual service users or relationship groups in their everyday work. So that's a pretty long-winded way when I'm reading that out there. But basically to say that we really want you, if you come on the programme, to leave year one having a good sense of what systemic practice, some of the core concepts that underpin the practice, but also to have skills and techniques that you can use in your current context and role, that will help your service users, both individuals and families. Yes, we want it to be relevant. It's not just about, because I think that's often a misnomer. People think, oh, I want to come onto these courses if I want to be a therapist. No, if you're a social worker, you can use these skills. If you're a counsellor, you can use these skills. If you're a mental health nurse, you can use these skills. If you're a social care worker, you can use these skills. And we really, really work to make sure that that's the case. Like the other postgraduate certificates that Anne and Gavin have talked about, there's three modules, and essentially they're packaged in theory, practice application, and personal professional development. But a bit like the way problems in people's lives don't divide up neatly, these don't divide up neatly in practice terms as well. So right from word go, these are intertwined. So it's not like we cover all the theory and then we do the skills and then we do the personal and professional development. These are intertwined throughout the full year, and also intertwined within the assignments as well. So in every assignment, you'll be talking about theory and concepts, but you'll also be talking about your practice, and you'll also be talking about your practice change and what you're learning about yourself and the way you're working with individuals or families. So they're really intertwined throughout the year. And there's three associated assignments, one before Christmas, one February, and one April and May. So, yeah. Let me see. Yes, so there's 15 taught days throughout the academic year. We usually start in October and run to April, May, try and sort of divvy them up always so that we miss the holiday periods, etc. Usually they're Thursday and Friday, once a month approximately. It's a little bit heavier in that first before Christmas, because we like to sort of get going and get the group established. And as I said before, there's multimodal sort of learning opportunities. So we have whole group sessions, where you have, the PowerPoint, and we're talking about the concepts, but also talking, seeing where people engaging with them, and yeah. So we've got the whole group context, and then we've got practice application group context, which are skills. They're smaller groups, no PowerPoints, and they're led usually by very experienced practitioners in the field. And we also have peer groups, small consulting partnerships, we call them. So you're asked to do your own genogram, because if we're working with families, we've got to think about our own. And think about it, our own families of origin and our families of choice. And so there's experiential components to the program where we have to consider our own lives and how we're responding, because that influences how we respond to individuals and families when they seek services with us. Um, yeah, okay. So there's 15 taught days, and social workers receive 5 requirements of this specialist award in social work. So in this year 1 program, you'll have 5 requirements. If you go on and do year 2, you'll exit with the full specialist award. Um, and later on, Stephen will. There's a couple of little videos, and Stephen will tell you, will show you where people who did this year 1 program spoke about their learning. Because the feedback is very good, and generally people leave feeling they've had a really good experience, and that's certainly what we're hoping for. Okay, that's me. I'm going to hand you over to Stephen, and we can take any questions later on at the end of this.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Stephen Coulter, and I look after year 2 of the systemic practice and family therapy pathway, what we often call the intermediate level, and also the Masters in Systemic Psychotherapy, which is qualification level for people who are interested in becoming clinically qualified systemic and family psychotherapists. So that's me. First of all, just say to you, well done for getting on and coming to this event this morning. It's been a bit of a challenge, hasn't it? With all the constrictions that we have at the moment, and also just for wanting to progress your learning at postgraduate level. Great. I noticed just listening in. Of course, we do have lots of kind of jargon and little terms we like to use when we're so involved in these courses, so please don't be afraid to ask any questions about that. If you're sort of thinking, what on earth are they talking about there, what does that mean, do come into the chat, and we'll try and respond in some sort of sensible way to your questions. Just as picking up from what Suzanne said, why would you not come on these courses, these great systemic courses? Well, I would say don't come if you just think, I just want to go along and sit there and be lectured at and write down some notes and do a couple of written assignments, and that'll do me. I'll bank that. Thanks very much. You can see by the structure, Suzanne mentioned, both at foundation level, we have what they call practice application groups, which you'll spend a half a day of each 2-day block in. And at intermediate level that I look after, we have about eight of those sessions during the 15 or taught days a year. When you're really working with a tutor and half the cohort to about how do I apply these ideas in practice? Well, first of all, how do I understand them? Like, I've listened to the lecture, but do I understand them? Like, what does this mean? A chance to discuss that. So we'll see about that. Also, as Suzanne said, we have consulting partnership groups, which are even smaller groups, usually around about 4 students, perhaps 5 students from different professional backgrounds, quite often in a mixture there, and even if the same professional background in different settings. So you have that opportunity again of, without a tutor, talking among yourselves about what does this mean and how can I apply that. And of course, there's this element of looking at yourself as well, what we call self-reflexivity. How are my own beliefs and biases and my own context interacting with those of the clients, of the individuals, couples and families that I'm working with. So that's the kind of tenor of the course. And this is a great time of year for us, because the final assignment on both, in fact, all 3 levels of the course is a kind of end of year portfolio. And part of that is like, what have I been learning? What's my learning journey during the year? And the thing that's very rewarding for us as educators is that, people are saying, what I've learned this year is making such a difference to my everyday practice. And my colleagues are noticing that, maybe my manager's noticing that, and hopefully their clients are really benefiting from that. So if you're looking for something that's likely to make a difference to the way you practice in your everyday work, we would certainly kind of recommend that. Not just something that you think, oh, it's an academic qualification that I'll just do it, bank it, and that's kind of nice to have and carry on as before, sort of thing. Okay, I mean, years one and two, if you do them, there's this they're kind of a block. The postgraduate diploma, you get 60 credits for year 1, and you add then 60 credits for year 2, and that gives you your 120 credits for a postgraduate diploma. And within the field and among employers, that's recognised. If you do the 2 years, you can be considered a systemic practitioner, right? You're not a qualified family therapist, but the idea is you have enough grounding there that you can add this element to your normal professional qualification, and that you're recognised that you're competent to work systemically with a range of client groups. It's very similar to the foundation course level, the entry level, three modules, kind of one more theory focused, one practice focused, and the other one kind of PPD focused. And they're again intertwined through the year during the 15 taught days, which at intermediate level are usually on at the moment anyway, they've been on Tuesdays for the last couple of years. The thing which is different to foundation level is you have to evidence 60 hours of supervised systemic practice in an agency context. So for most people, that's their own agency, but if people are in an agency which doesn't afford much opportunity, sometimes people negotiate that with another agency for some of those hours. And now we're not saying you've got to be doing family therapy, you've got to be in a family therapy formal clinic, anything like that. It's not family therapy, it's systemic practice. And what we're asking is that you evidence how you're applying the systemic ideas that you're learning in some parts of your normal everyday practice. And you write up a kind of a log record of that, and that's evidenced in your portfolio. And you also need to access someone who's a qualified family therapist to provide some supervision for those practice hours, 10 hours during the whole year. And they then sign off that you've engaged in that, etc., etc. Now, again, if you have someone who's a family therapist in your agency, that's the A route, because it builds those relationships in your agency, and also usually it's free to you. But if you don't, we can negotiate with other people, and we can help you do that. Find someone who would provide that supervision for you. So that's okay. You, I think, get the remaining 4 requirements for the Specialist Award in Social Work if you're a social worker. So that's quite nice if you, to get that award as well as your postgraduate diploma at the end of year 2. And then you're eligible also to access either the academic masters that Suzanne mentioned, which is by the dissertation module, or then to start a new program, which is the Masters in Systemic Psychotherapy. Maybe change the slide now, Barbara, if you would. Oh no, here's something about the videos. All right, I've got this first. So here is a slide with links, if you look on them, to 2 of our students. Matthew Montgomery did foundation program last year, and he's currently on the intermediate level training, completing that this year. And similarly, Tara Murphy, both very engaged and enthusiastic students in their own settings. I'm not sure if we can play those or not, whether we do that maybe at the end of the presentation. I don't know if someone can maybe get those up on the YouTube.
Yep, that would be
great. Would that be okay? We'll maybe
just
just do it at the end of the speaking. Would that work, or do you want to do it now, Anne?
Whatever works for you, Barbara. Can we get mine now, do you think? Or
well, there's a problem usually with the sound with this. That's why I just thought put the links in so that people can access this afterwards, because we'll get the presentation sent out.
Okay.
Okay,
yeah,
thanks.
That's fine. No, I just wasn't sure about that. I thought maybe they were looking for me to show them. Yeah. So yeah, if you want to hear about, and also on the application website, there's also 1 or 2 other little videos where people have done the master. So these are like former students are somewhere in the system currently talking about the different levels of the training and how that has impacted on their practice. So if you want to get something a bit more from the horse's mouth, you know, this is the place to go. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so now we're moving into a different program. Yeah, you start the MSc just with 0 credits, and you do 60 credits in year 1 and 120 credits in year 2, because the dissertation module, which is 60 credits, is mainly completed during year 2 of the program. There are 2 modules, other modules per year, kind of a theory one, which you get 20 credits for, and a practice one that you get 40 credits for. The reason you get 40 credits for the practice one is that you actually spend over the 2 years 300 hours in a supervised practice training clinic in a clinical setting, live supervised by a family therapist. So that's a really distinctive and unique element of the program. So you're there with your supervisor and probably maybe 2, possibly 3 other students on the master's program, and that you're seeing families, usually using kind of one-way screen technology and perhaps an earbug so that the supervisor can communicate with you, and you'll interview the family being observed by your colleagues, and then you'll have discussion about how that interview is going and what you can do, how you can take it forward. And then maybe at the end, your colleagues might also suggest some things to say to the family, or they may indeed come into the room and say things themselves to the family. So it's really an interesting opportunity to get real-time feedback on your actual developing practice. Very intense experience. There's about 26 or 27 days of that per year. So more or less every week through the academic year, you would be in a supervised clinic. And then you'll also have, I think 15 taught days currently. I think it says 16 on the slide, but I think it's 15 taught days we're doing at the moment, which is similarly like once a fortnight through the academic year. And that's the same at intermediate level. We don't do 2-day blocks. We do 1 day a fortnight, and the same at the master's. So for this master's program, you'll have 2 days 1 week, 1 day in your clinic, one day being taught in Queen's, and then the following week you'll have your clinic day, and the following week you'll have a day in Queen's and a clinic day. So it's quite an intensive program, and you're sort of living these programs a bit more than foundation level. You're sort of staying with it because we have ways of kind of recursive ways of keeping you thinking about the ideas during the whole academic year. In addition to those hours that we provide, the 300 hours over the 2 years in the supervised practice clinic, we also require you to evidence 200 hours systemic practice in an agency context. A bit like intermediate level, we ask you for 60. This is very similar, an average of 100 per year over the 2 years. So that's again quite similar to what people do at intermediate level, just a bit of a higher hours requirement for that. It's a 2-year intake to this program. We just run 1 cohort at a time. So currently we're in the 20 to 22 cohort. And so the next possible cohort would be 2022 to 2024. So you've a wee bit of time to think about that if it's in your mind. But of course, you have to have done the foundation and intermediate level to be eligible for this program. So probably not too many of you might be in that position now, but hopefully at some point in the future, some of you might be. So it's a very specialist program. Trusts tend to fund people to do it if they think they have family therapy posts that are going to become available. They're looking for people to fill those posts in the future, but they don't tend to send people just because people are kind of interested. 1 or 2 people have self-funded, of course, although it's a considerable commitment. I think it's up around £6,000 per year for this program. But also I'm aware there are the possibility over the last few years to have a postgraduate student grant to do some of these postgraduate programs. But so it's a high level of commitment. Generally, we would think from foundation level to intermediate level, we might have around 50 to 60% of people might kind of follow on directly from 1 year to the other. And then we might get another, maybe 10% of people who'll take a break of a year or 2 years and then pick up the second year. So you don't have to roll forward immediately. You can take a break and come back again after a year or 2 to complete the second year if you want to do that. And then again, we tend to have an intake for each of the master's cohorts of, something around about eight students per cohort. So that's kind of the way the numbers tend to pan out. It varies a bit, obviously, from one course to the next. We rely a lot on our tutors, as well as our lecturers. We have tutors who lead the systemic practice groups, intermediate level, and practice application groups at foundation level. And indeed, there's a strong PPD component as well at the master's level, where you have a tutor who's not involved in any other aspect of the program, where you can discuss things and process the learning and the quite intense experience that you're having. So maybe that's enough. I've gone on long enough, probably, haven't I? So if there's any other any questions at this stage, either for myself or for Suzanne, we'd be very happy to try and respond.
Maybe it's worth saying just that we're really happy as well to take any questions. You can email us, or sometimes it is hard to take it all in and know whether this is applicable for me. And really would encourage anybody that's thinking, particularly of entering the programs, to have a look at those wee videos because they're fantastic. We were really delighted that Matthew and Tara made them for us, and. I think just they're really wee short, wee 3-minute videos, but they really give you a sense of, what the program's like and what can be gained from it. Yeah. So please don't hesitate also to get in touch.